Hi everyone, welcome to Over La Luna. My name is Lauren and today I'll be giving you 10 tips and tricks for being an Airbnb host. I have my laptop in front of me, I'm sorry, but there's just so much good information and I don't want to forget anything. So let's see if we can quickly get through this. I apologize in advance if it's a bit long. Tip number 1 is to take great photos. Airbnb offers a service in which local photographers can go ahead and take those photos for you. Now, in the case that those photos are not, you can't do those photos because it's not available in your area, you got to take them on your own and practice basic photography tips such as lighting practices and other things like that, so that way you can ensure the best quality photos. These are the first things users see, and Airbnb is has such a great user interface, so you want to make your listing correspond with everything else that's going on their website. Tip number 2, clean, clean, clean. I can't emphasize this enough. I'm not saying that it has to be absolutely perfect, but the space that the guest stays in, you want to ensure that it's clean. Likewise, shared spaces, you also want to ensure that those spaces are clean. What I found helps is if you maintain your routine of cleaning at a few times a week. Whenever you have your guests coming, it doesn't seem like such a chore to get the place ready for guests to stay, and it's not as overwhelming. Also, allot yourself some time, maybe a day or two between listings, to ensure that you have the listing ready for that guest and you're not scrambling and not giving your best to your listing. Tip number 3, and I suggest in the beginning to start more affordable than you anticipated to become. That way you can gain the time to get reviews and get people staying, giving you good feedback and really getting the handle on Airbnb, because it is a learning process. And once you have, say, maybe 10 positive reviews, then reassess what you think your listing stands as and go ahead and move it to that price, or gradually move it to that price with increasing positive reviews. Tip number 4, keeping your calendar up to date. I say this from personal experience because when somebody messages you and you realize that you might have forgot to update your calendar, it makes me feel bad, at least, to decline somebody. And then also, when you decline somebody, they might be less likely to request you in the future because they've already been declined before. So if you keep your calendar up to date, you wouldn't have those unnecessary interactions, and it'll just keep everything in good standing. And from a time management perspective, you want to save yourself as much time as you can. This is your little side business, and all those extra emails, you don't need to be doing that. Just take the few seconds it takes to update your calendar. Tip number 5, respond quickly, but don't hesitate to ask for information. What I mean by this is I'm not saying you have to give a yes or no immediately as soon as you get a request, but at least go ahead and take some steps to ask some leading questions like, what are you coming into town for? Or is there anything I can do to assist you with your stay here, or anything you want to see, for instance, like museums? And this allows you to get to know the guest without prying too much into their personal details. Feel free to also, if you don't see that they have a verified profile, ask them to go ahead and get the verification process done. See if they have reviews, and see if they're connected to any social media or any external interactions with Airbnb. So that way you kind of get a feel for it. Use this combination of following up with questions and checking on their profile and asking about that to make your decision. So that way you can quickly say yes, no, and get that over with once you fully understand the situation. Tip number 6, emulate like a hotel, but have some personal touches to it. So what I mean by emulating like a hotel, make sure you provide everything that the guest could want. For instance, like toothpaste and shampoo and conditioner. No guest wants to have to travel with those things, so be sure to provide that for them. Take that extra step. Even if it costs you $2 extra per listing, you can tack that on, the $2 into the listing, or you can just provide it without tacking that on. But taking that step makes your place memorable and more easy for the person to stay there and want to be a guest there. Now, in terms of some personal touches, you can provide some snacks and a drink when they arrive. I always have water and say granola bars or a bag of chips or something waiting for the guests, because when guests arrive, they're hungry, they're tired, they just need to get going, or they need to relax, something. So I provide that for them. And then also I include a guest book, because like a bed and breakfast, I want to hear some feedback, I want to hear some stories, and the guest book really allows for that. And I've had such memorable and great stories that have come from reading my guest book after their stay. Number 7, don't hide anything from the guest. And I mean that in the sense that they should be completely aware of what they're going to receive. For instance, we have Luna. She's our life. I can't do anything without her. I always make sure to write about her in our messages to each other. She's included in the listing, in the description, and I even went so far as to include a picture of her, so that way when they're scrolling through photos, they definitely don't miss her cute little face. And some people don't like cats, and I want them to know about that before, so that way we don't have any confusion. Likewise, aside from pets, if you're not going to provide things like, say, little toiletries here and there, let them know so that way they can go ahead and bring it. You don't want them to be underprepared and then have to worry about getting all those things and some confusion afterwards. Tip number 8. Think about what you want and be prepared to understand your limitations. What I mean by this is, with Airbnb comes the experience of what I like to call a roommate or a guest. And Nick and I have learned that we don't necessarily want a roommate. We want a guest, something very short term. From our experiences, we have come to understand that for us, anything beyond a week feels like a roommate. Anything less than a week feels like a guest. And so I've structured my Airbnb profile so that way I don't accept any requests that extend beyond a week. And it works for us. So find out what works for you. And this might take a few reservations for you before you even find out what works for you. Tip number 9, talking to an accountant. I recommend this because every city and state has different laws. You might need to know how much taxes you have to take out, and also if you incur a hotel tax. We're lucky that in our city we don't have one, but in other cities this does apply, and you might have to take it out of whatever you're charging, or you might have to charge it beforehand. So figure that out. You can do some due diligence on your end and do, a simple Google search to figure that out, but also talk to an accountant so that way you're aware before you have to pay your taxes what income and all the financial portions of it. That's something that's very important. You don't want to end up losing money on something like this. So take that time to reach out and get your taxes done and assessed. Finally, tip number 10. Have fun and be safe. I can't emphasize the having fun enough though. If you like to interact with people, Airbnb is a great experience and something that is unlike anything else. And there's nothing I've enjoyed more than having a glass of wine with my first guest on the balcony, or another guest. We went out for Mexican and margaritas, and it was a great time. So take the time to have those connections and make friends in the experience. We've met people of all ages from all over the globe, and all walks of life, and that's something that is truly unique to Airbnb, I think. So have fun. I would like to summarize, we've covered so much in such a short period of time. And so I think the main points are to advertise your space as best as you can, so that way it's the first thing they see and it's the thing that grabs them in. And then after you advertise that space, be transparent with them so that way they know what their expectations are, and you're going to meet those expectations, and there's no wiggle room in between, so they get exactly what they want and you get exactly what you want. Also, understand the financial aspect. So after all that stuff is done, you still need to worry about what you're doing with the taxes or what laws you have to abide by, so be very clear on that. and enjoy this unique experience. So, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know. I'd be happy to discuss this with you further, and I would love to hear some feedback of your experiences. So comment below and we'll definitely take a look at it. And until then, see you next time here from Over La Luna. Bye. And continually monitor what people are listing their space as, because it does change. It gets cheaper in seasons, it gets more expensive in other times of year. Be conscious of that and match your competition, so that way you provide a fair to you and to your guest price. AirBNB also has a really great calendar that lets you get a price average of